Listen, sister, progesterone is one of the most powerful hormones in your midlife experience. Now we're going to dive into the amazing hormone that tucks you in at night, the hormone that holds your mood, your sleep, your sanity, and honestly, your ability to not burn your life down. I'm talking about progesterone. So buckle up because today, you'll learn what progesterone actually does, the signs of low progesterone, the signs of high progesterone, what causes progesterone imbalance. So progesterone is not just a pregnancy hormone. Really, if you had any issues getting pregnant, you probably think about progesterone and really relate it to pregnancy because it has to come to the table for ovulation and for pregnancy. But when we're no longer interested in being fertile, this hormone really flippin' matters to how we feel. It's your calm, it's your mood balance, it's your sleep, right? It's your blood sugar stability, your anxiety regulator, your anti-inflammatory buddy, your thyroid supporter, your bone and brain protector, and it's also your buffer to estrogen. So these things have like whole body effects. So let's talk about what happens to progesterone in perimenopause and then in menopause. Hey, sister. Welcome back to the Period Whisperer podcast, the space where we talk about all things hormones, perimenopause, menopause, truth telling, science meets real life, and basically the manual you should have been handed at 12, but here we are doing it together now. Today, we are diving into a hormone I lovingly like to call the queen of calm. So last week, if you missed last week's episode, we dove all into estrogen, everything you needed to know. And now we're going to dive into the amazing hormone that tucks you in at night, the hormone that keeps you from wanting to throat punch your family, and the hormone that holds your mood, your sleep, your sanity, and honestly, your ability to not burn your life down. I'm talking about progesterone. So if estrogen is Beyonce, then progesterone is Michelle. Not as loud, not as flashy, but girl, the show does not work without her. So buckle up because today you'll learn what progesterone actually does, the signs of low progesterone, the signs of high progesterone, what causes progesterone imbalance. And yes, some of these have nothing to do with perimenopause. And I really like to drive that home because if you are someone who's suffering with a lot of these symptoms and you're still in your 30s or early 40s, really good chance it's not because you're unable to produce sex hormones, right? Which is really what we consider when we're much closer to menopause, which again changes for everyone, but is typically more late 40s to 50s. There's a lot of things that throw off our progesterone that we can work around, that we can heal from, that we can create so that we don't have to necessarily take hormone replacement therapy. We just heal our body from the inside out. So we're going to talk about those today. We're also going to talk about the different types of hormone replacement therapy, progesterone. We're going to talk about safety myths. We're talking about how to talk to your doctor without being dismissed. I think a lot of people struggle with this. And why I will die on the hill that no one should start HRT without understanding detox and gut pathways first. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the progesterone. Let's talk about this queen of the calm and do a little bit of progesterone one-on-one. What does it actually do? So progesterone is not just a pregnancy hormone. Really, that's if you had any issues getting pregnant, you probably think about progesterone and really relate it to pregnancy because it has to come to the table for ovulation and for pregnancy. But when we're no longer interested in being fertile, this hormone really flippin' matters to how we feel. It's your calm, it's your mood balance, it's your sleep, right? It's your blood sugar stability, your anxiety regulator, your anti-inflammatory buddy, your thyroid supporter, your bone and brain protector, and it's also your buffer to estrogen. So these things have like whole body effects. And I always think of Dr. Christiane Northrup, who if you're super into menopause and hormones, you probably know who I'm talking about when I talk about Dr. Christiane Northrup, who I believe I talked about on the last episode too. She's like the OG. I feel like she really dove into not just the science, but like the emotional physiology and connection and the changes in us around this time in our lives. But she talks about how progesterone is the hormone that soothes the nervous system and returns women to themselves. I mean, like that alone, I think sums up why having healthy progesterone levels is so key and why we can feel so horrible when we don't have them. So let's talk about what happens to progesterone in perimenopause and then in menopause. So in perimenopause, ovulation starts becoming inconsistent, which means that progesterone production becomes inconsistent. Some months you ovulate, some months you don't ovulate because your ovaries are like, I'm taking a personal day. I'm close to retirement anyway. I'm going to stop putting so much effort into things. And when you ovulate less, therefore you make less progesterone. And less progesterone equals more anxiety, more irritability, more night waking, more PMS, more tears at random commercials. Now, in menopause, when you are done ovulating entirely, like when your ovaries have decided, okay, I'm actually retiring, I'm out, I've done my job, done my service, I'm going off on my beautiful retirement leave, progesterone drops almost to nearly zero in the body, which is why so many women can feel wired but tired, ragey, raggedy almost, stressed out, unable to sleep very deeply, more inflamed, more anxious. I mean, it sounds really horrible, but these are very familiar to a lot of women. And you're not crazy. You're not just getting older. This is like the physiology that's happening in our body. And we always have to remember decades and decades and decades ago, people didn't live this long. So now we're having women with the ability to live much longer past menopause. And that's where I think the amazing opportunities of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy can be really helpful. We don't all need it, but it can be really supportive for us. So I'm a big fan of not suffering as long as you've done the underlying work, right? Let's take advantage of the opportunities of this new age world when we're forced to live in the new age world. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about signs of low progesterone. So, low progesterone is kind of like living with the emotional stability of, I don't know, a squirrel on an espresso. So, common signs like nighttime waking, especially between 2 and 4 a.m., racing mind at night, anxiety, irritability, or that revved up feeling that we can get, PMS that keeps getting worse. I mean, just what we really want when we're in our late 40s, right? Heavier periods or spotting, migraines around your cycle, increased cravings or blood sugar swings, feeling exhausted or unable to relax, mood swings or emotional overwhelm, right? A lot of unsettledness comes from low progesterone, and a lot of settledness comes from healthy progesterone. So, high progesterone is way less common naturally, but it can happen with supplements or even certain conditions. So, signs of that are going to feel like overly sedated, right? So, if you do end up being put on some hormone replacement therapy for progesterone and you find that you're just kind of really sluggish and unmotivated, that's a common sign of high progesterone, extreme fatigue, even dizziness or depression, water retention, even breast swelling, and then, of course, low libido. So sometimes high progesterone feels like low progesterone because of how it converts in the brain. But this is why testing, I think, really matters, especially if you're going to do something like bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I think testing and being in consistent contact with your practitioner, like every 6 to 12 weeks, checking, seeing how things are, at least until you hit a stride where you're super comfortable and you're kind of post-menopausal. But if we're still in the years of the fluctuating hormones, it is challenging because our hormones are fluctuating at the same time as us taking some hormones. So it really is more of an art, right? We need to be working with our bodies and learning to really listen to what our body is saying to us, like what the response is. So here's the part that no one really talks about, like what actually causes low progesterone that has nothing to do with perimenopause. So when I hit my all-time low in my hormones at 37, like not in my hormones, yes, in my hormones, but also in how I was feeling in life, you know, it was had a lot to do with having really tanked progesterone. And I had tanked but recirculating estrogen at 37. Now I am 44. I'm not on hormone replacement therapy, and I have full capability of my own sex hormones to produce, to clear, to detox. But at the time, my detox pathways were blocked and I was completely depleted in my sex hormones. So I was just falling apart. And I thought it was crazy because it looked normal, but for me, it was not normal, the amount that I was having. So progesterone can really drop, right? Even in your 20s and 30s, as I was saying, like for me, due to, surprise, surprise, chronic stress. Cortisol steals from progesterone production, right? This is kind of the classic pregnenolone steal, they call it. But it really, I almost think of it as it's just going to compete sometimes with progesterone and it's stronger. It's always going to win. So if we're chronically stressed, if stress is happening, then progesterone's just going to, it's like the shy hormone. It's just going to kind of dissipate around it. Under eating or over exercising, okay, that I fell into the certainly the over exercising part of this. So if you're not eating enough, your body's going to shut down ovulation. No ovulation equals no progesterone. If you're over exercising, same thing. Again, over exercising can be, now we're burning too much, but it's also just really stressful on the body. Blood sugar instability is another huge one, right? So, insulin resistance is going to really disrupt ovulation and hormones. So, if you have been struggling for a long time with blood sugar instability, and what are some big signs of that? I mean, certainly waking up between 2 and 4 a.m. can be a big sign of that. Waking up frequently in the night can be a good sign of blood sugar instability. If you're someone who gets hangry, if you're someone who has like complete exhaustion after a meal, yeah, if you have a lot of ups and downs in a day in your energy, that is very indicative of blood sugar instability. And of course, if you're someone who is eating consistently and moving well and doing all the things, then that might not necessarily be as much of a blood sugar issue as it is an insulin resistance issue, which obviously causes more issues for blood sugar. So, something else that can really cause this is thyroid dysfunction, right? Your thyroid is really the boss of your ovaries. So, if your thyroid is sluggish, ovulation struggles, progesterone therefore struggles. Gut dysbiosis, this is where you're going to hear me talk about the GI map again. If you have not had a GI map done, I really, really, really strongly recommend it. The gut microbiome influences hormone signaling and absorption. We cannot fix our hormones if our gut is off. Nutrient deficiencies, high inflammation, birth control, all of these are going to impact our progesterone and they have nothing to do with perimenopause or menopause. So when I look at this, I think about chronic stress, I think about overexercising, I think about gut dysbiosis, I think about nutrient deficiencies. Those were all my issues that were a big part of taking me down at 37 to the unhealthiest and the most horrible I've ever felt in my life, and also bringing me back to feeling the most vibrant I've ever felt. So, what causes high progesterone outside of perimenopause? Again, I think this is really important because I'd say 8 out of 10 of the clients, maybe 9 out of 10 of the women that I am so blessed to work with, don't have a hormone production issue because of perimenopause and menopause, which sounds crazy, right? Because that is what I am known for, perimenopause and hormones. But it's, we think, oh, my hormones are low because I am in perimenopause or menopause. But most of the time, for a lot of the women that I work with, again, especially if you're under 50, they have the ability to produce their own amount of their sex hormones. It's just something else is getting in the way, right? The why this is happening. And my job is always to help answer the why for you, because we cannot get to awesomeness without knowing the reason and healing the reason, the root cause of why we got there. And that's why it's so frustrating when we go to healthcare practitioners and we kind of get band-aid solutions or we get completely dismissed because we're just not getting down into the root. And again, that's what functional practitioners are here for. So high progesterone outside of perimenopause is another area that's just not talked about enough. So over supplementation with progesterone creams, right? Again, I have a lot of women that reach out to me and they tell me they're on hormone replacement therapy and it's not really working very well, or it worked a little, but it's not making any changes here, here, and here. And I'm always like, what were your hormones when you were tested? And they're like, well, I wasn't tested. I was just put on this. And although I will tell you, if I was going to pick one hormone to go on without testing, it would be progesterone because it is the least problematic if we have too much or if we're not metabolizing it properly. But it's not okay, right? Like you don't want to just, it's like if your child isn't feeling well, you're not just going to give them medicine without understanding that something is wrong, right? We just don't throw something at a problem of someone that we care about. And I think one of the most important things I want you to know, sister listening, is that your relationship with your body really needs to be very similar to your relationship and the way you treat your children. Like, this is our most important relationship because without it, we cannot love our children, we cannot love our partners, we cannot love our careers, we cannot do these other things if our health is not taken care of. So, your ability to listen to what your body is saying and know what's going on inside of her is so key. And it's the best skill that I think you can learn that's going to serve you long time when you understand what she's saying, when you understand her needs. Because, just like your children or your pets, for goodness sakes, like I can tell the difference in my cat's meow or my dog's whines in what they need. Just like I can tell when my kids are lying. I can tell when they are, just overtired or overwhelmed or something else is going on that they're not telling me, right? This is how we want to listen to our own body. And part of that in our body is testing, annual testing, getting to know what's going on. But okay, I got off topic. So what causes high progesterone? Again, over supplementation with progesterone creams, again, oral progesterone dosing that's too high. Rare certain tumors can drive it, genetic variations in progesterone metabolism, medications that slow progesterone clearance. Poor liver detox is always going to be a problem when it comes to creating hormone recycling, recirculating in our body. And this is why, again, more progesterone is not always the answer. Your body needs balance, not guessing. So, let's talk a bit about the types of progesterone in hormone replacement therapy and why they matter. I think that understanding this piece, I think progesterone can be one of the most beneficial options for us to start and is often the first place for a lot of women to start when it comes to hormone replacement therapy. Again, when you're doing the foundations, like the very first step of everything in getting healthy is foundations and then hormone optimization and then biohacking. That is how it's like kindergarten, high school, college, right? That's what I want you to think about for your health. So when you're in hormone optimization, you need to make sure in order to optimize your hormones, you've graduated from elementary school first, right? That those foundations of your health are strong. And then we get into hormone optimization, which could include hormone replacement therapy. So, a quick reminder that progesterone is not the same as progestin. Progestin is what is a synthetic form. It's found in many birth control pills and some hormone replacement therapy blends. It does increase clot risk. It can cause mood issues. It can worsen bloating, breast tenderness, and anxiety. So it doesn't act the same as progesterone in the metabolism or in the brain. Like if you've ever been on birth control in your life and felt still moody or just off, it probably wasn't you, it was probably the progestin. So some really good bioidentical progesterone, micronized specifically. This is the good stuff. Same structure as what your body makes. It's going to calm the brain. It's going to help sleep. It's going to help balance out your estrogen, protect your uterine lining, lower your risk profile overall. And it can come in oral forms, it can come in topical creams, and it can come in vaginal suppositories. Those are the different ways that we get it. But I always want to encourage bioidentical options before synthetic options because when it's bioidentical, it doesn't mean it doesn't have like pharmaceuticals or chemicals in it, but it does mean that your body recognizes what it is and therefore knows what to do with it. I always think about this when I think about grocery stores. There was a big thing that always went around for years in the healthy land that's like shop the perimeter of your grocery store. Those are the perishable items, right? You got your fruit and veg, you got your dairy and meats, like all the things that can be disposed of. Everything in the middle often has some type of preservative in it. And when we have man made chemicals in a food, your body doesn't know what to do with that. So, what do we think it does? It like sticks it somewhere until it figures its own way around it. The same goes for drugs and medication in our body. Not that I 100% believe there is so much value in Western medicine and what it can do for us when we need it. But let's make sure we've exhausted all other avenues first, right? And let's make sure we've given the body things that it absolutely needs because there's a cost to do in business when we're putting something synthetic in our body at all times, whether that is processed food or whether that is a medication. So we just want to make sure we're doing the underlying work first. And then it might be that we still need a synthetic medication sometime. And thank goodness for that, because I don't think we should be suffering in this day and age a lot of the time. Okay, so now we understand. Let's talk a little bit about, is progesterone safe? Let's bust a few myths, right? So, short version here, bioidentical progesterone is safe for most women. It protects the uterine lining, it supports brain health, it improves our sleep. It has a better breast cancer risk profile than progestins, right? The synthetic version. It can be used long term under guidance. And really, the fear around progesterone mostly comes from studies on synthetic progestins, not bioidentical progesterone. So, deep breath, you're okay. If we've done the underlying work, if we've done the foundations, and then we've tested our hormones and we've done our detoxification first, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy can be an amazing option for you. So, now that we understand this, now that we understand what's going to happen, why we want progesterone, what our options are, how do you talk to your healthcare practitioner without getting dismissed? Because for me, a functional practitioner like myself, I do have access to some hormone replacement therapy, but sometimes the most effective way to get it is through your healthcare practitioner. And I work with a lot of my clients' practitioners to see if we can get them the right option for them, especially if maybe some of the more gentle or herbal options aren't really hitting it. And we know that maybe a more micronized compound pharmacy option would be better for them. And I'm a non prescribing practitioner. I like to work with practitioners to help them get the best results. So here's a script, okay? And you can write this down. I understand my labs may be normal, but my symptoms match functional progesterone deficiency. I'd like to explore bioidentical progesterone support. If they say something like you don't need progesterone in menopause, or your symptoms are just stress, or you're not in menopause yet, or progesterone doesn't help sleep, or you don't need progesterone because you don't have a uterus, you can say something like, well, current research shows micronized progesterone supports sleep, anxiety, and estrogen balance. I'd like to trial a therapeutic dose. Now, if they offer something like birth control, antidepressants, or nothing, it is 100% okay for you to get a second opinion. This is your body. You are the CEO. And if your doctor is still practicing medicine from 1995, that's a them problem, not a you problem. You can also book a consultation with a functional practitioner like me, and I can work on these things for you. But if you need to have it done through insurance, that is what you want to be saying to your healthcare practitioner. That being said, I am going to walk through one more time, and you're going to hear me talk about it again when we talk about testosterone next week, why you should never start hormone replacement therapy without detox and gut testing first. This is where conventional medicine leaves women really stranded. Before adding hormones, we must understand one, our estrogen detox pathways. If estrogen can't move through phase one, two, or three detox properly, progesterone cannot balance it. Number two, gut health. If your gut is inflamed or dysbiotic, or your estroblome will recycle estrogen, leading to estrogen dominance and worsening symptoms, even if your progesterone is quote unquote fine, functionally or medically. Number three, your cortisol curve. If your cortisol pattern is dysregulated, progesterone gets shunted into cortisol production. Hello, we want to not be doing that. So we need to understand what our adrenals are doing, what our daily cortisol pattern is looking like. That is what we get from our Dutch test. And number four, liver and nutrient status. You need minerals, B vitamins, protein, and a healthy liver to actually use hormones. And if you have the MTHFR gene or other COMT issues, you may need methylated versions of these. How do we know this stuff? Only if we test. And the other benefit I will say about testing is that when you invest in testing, not only do you stop guessing, but it's very motivating because you've invested in yourself, you see it there, and you're like, nope, this is for me. It's a lot easier to say to the people around you, sorry, I can't eat gluten, or sorry, I don't do this because I literally saw the marker in my own gut saying that is an absolute no no, period. It's so much easier to say no to the social pressures around you. And it's so much easier to convince yourself to push through the hard parts of making changes when you can really see what's going on for yourself. So, this is why the Dutch and GI map tests are kind of the holy grail for smart hormone therapy. Without this info, giving someone hormones is like throwing designer clothes into a messy closet. Nothing fits and everything gets worse. So we really want to make sure we're testing and not guessing when possible. All right. Final part I'm going to say is, how do we start naturally supporting our own progesterone? Because we can do this. We can do a lot of this. Number one is eating enough. Yes, actually enough. Specifically, we do need to eat complex carbohydrates. So I will just throw this out there. You need to be eating at least 100 grams of complex carbohydrates, period. If you are eating less than that, you are really going to impact your progesterone and your thyroid, and it's going to come back and bite you. Maybe you can do it for a short period of time, but at our age, when there's so many other stresses going on in our body, really good chance your body's not going to be able to handle that for very long, and you're going to pay the piper for that type of restriction. So don't skip carbs. Manage your stress. I know this is hard with all the things that we are going, but I am sorry. We have to be big girls and put on our big girls pants and like take 5 minutes to breathe, or take a minute to breathe before we sit down and eat an actual meal, and not just rush through it because of other people's needs. We have needs. You have needs. You need to deal with those needs. Magnesium glycinate can be really, really helpful here, or threonate, B6, really all your Bs, improve your sleep, right? Whatever we need to do to improve that sleep, which we can also do by running a Dutch or a GI map, support your thyroid function, balance your blood sugar, support your detox pathways, right? That's things like getting your minerals in. Hello, love my Beam minerals. Please, if you haven't tried Beam Minerals and you need a very quick, easy, affordable fix, go check out beamminerals.com. Use discount code BRIA for 20% off. You will not regret it after the 2 month supply that you get. You won't. And hydration. So we want to make sure we're getting those things in to help that detox pathway. Listen, sister, progesterone is one of the most powerful hormones in your midlife experience. When it drops, you feel it everywhere in your body. When it's supported naturally or with bioidentical replacement therapy, your mood stabilizes, your sleep improves, and your body feels safe again, which is what we're going for. You deserve that. And if you've been dismissed, minimized, or told everything is normal, I'm here to tell you that not all doctors are going to know what to do. So, this is our opportunity to listen to our own body. Your symptoms are real, your experience matters, and there is a path going forward. So, if you've loved this episode, share it with your friend, leave a review, reach out if you want to explore a Dutch or a GI map, swipe up, book a call. The link is in the show notes below. Your body isn't betraying you, it is communicating with you, and you are learning the language. So take this information, take one thing from today, be more in your life and not just less on a scale. And we'll catch you in the next episode.